Hello and welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, June 27th, 2017. We are coming live from the W4CY studio here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I hope all you guys are doing well. Well, if you guys are paying attention to my social media, you guys know I'm leaving for Chicago for exactly about 1 month. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see my friends. I can't wait to see my family. It's going to be so much a great time spending time with my mom and just catching up. You know, I get to kind of relax for a whole month. I'm still going to be doing the radio show while I'm over there, but you know, it's nice to spend family. I've been away from home for, I don't know, 20 plus years, and you know, family's always been really important to me. I don't know how you guys view family, if family's a pain in the butt or you enjoy family or whatever the situation is, but you know, when you don't have it around, you realize how precious it is. And so every year I try to go in once or twice a year. Sometimes I go in for the holidays, even though I don't do Christmas and all that stuff. They do, so I try to go in for them. But I at least try to go in for the summer, because you know what, in Chicago, during the summertime, it's beautiful there. You know, this month we're going to have the Chicago Open Air concert, which I'm so excited to go to and be a part of. And while I'm there, I'm also going to go to Six Flags Great America. If you don't know what that is an awesome amusement park, and I love going every time. I love the big rides, the big drops. I like sitting in the front and going all crazy when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, I'm excited. I've started losing sleep. I have sleeping issues anyways, but I've started to get that little kid excitement all over. I'm going to Chicago. Yeah, I'm going to see my family and friends. So you know, it's like sitting up at night just watching the paint dry. But yeah, if you'd like to give us a call in, you can give us a call in at 561-623-9429. You can web chat us on the W4CY.com website and download the W4CY radio app at the App Store. And the video archive will be at the youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation Radio Show. Well, tonight's show is going to be all about addiction, at least the emotional side. I'm not really going to get too much into, you know, the physiological side and the medicine side. We will have another show on that, but, you know, addiction comes, you know, a lot of people suffer from addiction. There's so many of us, and especially down here in South Florida, I know it's a very big deal down here. You know, and what's the funny thing about it is, you know, and I'll tell my story too, because even I've suffered from parts of addiction throughout my life, and you know, and so many of us do. We all have our form of addiction. So many of us think of addiction as just illegal drugs, maybe cocaine or heroin or you know, things like that, but it's not. Addiction can, like I said, take many forms. It could be in the form of food. It can be in the form of emotions. It can be in this form of self-abuse, or even legal drugs such as cigarettes, alcohol, or prescription drugs. And some of those are actually even more dangerous than the illegal drugs. But do you ever think about that stuff? Do you ever think about our emotions or our food or even our, you know, how we talk and how we view ourselves as being self-abused? Do you ever think about that as an addiction? Because, you know, I mean, we could even stretch addiction as far as shopping. I mean, how many of you women love to shop and you get a little money and you just got to go out there and just buy something? And even though you don't have the money, you still got to kind of do that just to fill this craving inside. Well, that becomes an addiction too. And you know, we could sit here and I guarantee you guys can think of so many other addictions, but to keep the show kind of short and on topic, we'll sit there for now. But And addiction is basically is doing something impulsively that makes us lose our control of our willpower. It really is a chemical dependency that goes on within the brain. And like I said, I'm not going to get too involved into chemical compounds and hormones and everything today. But to keep it simple, that's what it does. Our brain works in patterns. Our brain works in conditionings, and depending on how things go and what we're really attuned to is really how the brain's going to react. So what type of things, if I ask you guys, what kind of things cause addictions? What do you think that that might cause addictions? Could personal pain be a cause addiction, or at least the addiction patterns? How about personal experiences? We go out, we have life, we have things, people break our heart, people betray us, things don't work out the way we think, life should go, and maybe that is. How about the lack of love, or especially self-love or love of others? Sometimes we feel lost in the world. I know many people that, live and die on relationships, and it's something that when they're in a relationship, the world is so happy, life is great, but the moment something happens and it wrecks them, and then they turn to maybe substance abuse or food abuse or some type of thing where we build an addiction. But one of the main things, and we're going to talk about a lot this tonight in tonight's show, is we don't believe in ourselves. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, especially for some of you who have been listening for the show for a long time, but it's so important. This is the most important idea, because it all stems down. If we look at life and we say, there's funnels and everything kind of branches, if we think of maybe a big tree and all these ideas are the leaves and stems and branches, well, everything funnels down into the trunk and the roots, right? Well, and that's really where a lot of addictions start, is the belief in ourselves. And you may say, well, Miss Raina, well, how does belief, in ourselves work like that? But it does, because belief in ourselves is where it starts. When we look at life and we say, well, I can do this, I can do these things, I have confidence in myself, I love myself enough not to do these or have control over these ideas, well, then we seem to find willpower. But when we take life and we're unsure, and we don't know what's going on in life, when we're kind of guessing at things, well, it's easier to fall back on idea, or it's easier to fall back on these things called addictions or an addictive patterns. And these type of things make us become insecure, because like I said in my other shows, we're kind of guessing at life. Many of us were kind of just scrolling through life, just wondering, what the next challenge is going to be. Some of us may play the victim role and life is out to get us, or karma's out to get us. Others are excited and waiting to see what life throws at us next, and challenges and relationships and everything, but everything constantly changes. And when we become this insecure person, when we become disbelief within ourselves, it actually, we have to look at the first thing that I always say is look at our unresolved issues. Where are our unresolved issues? What are the things in life that we have yet to deal with? What are the things in life that we are unsure of that maybe have caused us great pain? And that could be where we start, because the people who don't know how to deal with these unresolved issues or things that have happened in life often, succumb to addictive patterns, is because, no one really shows us, does it? Like I said before, there's always, it would be nice if, when we were born, we got this map of life or these instruction manuals to life, and these are the things that would happen, and these are the things you should be aware of, and that, but it's not like that. And why? Because life is meant to learn. Life is hard, but we have to learn how to deal with these ideas. We have to learn to deal about things in life that come to our thing. And this is why I've always been against, of course I'm for education, but I've always been against our educational system, because a lot of school, a lot of parenting, a lot of things teach us how to get a job, but they don't teach us how to resolve pain, how to resolve our personal experience, how to build a form of self-love, or how to build all these ideas, or even believe in ourselves. If I ask most people and I say, well, do you believe in yourselves? What is it that, I'm going to get this funny look, and people will probably say yes just because they don't want to say no. And there are some people that'll be totally honest. Yeah, I don't believe in myself at all. But But this is what we're doing. And so why are addictive patterns, or why are addictions so powerful? What is it if we're not looking at the chemicals today, or and what's going on inside the body, what is it that the addiction is doing for us? Well, it's chasing a feeling, right? Isn't any time we go out, if we're upset, we go to the bar to get drunk, or we go, to go get some drugs, or we go eat, like we're feeling bad. How many of us, when we get a breakup or we're having a bad day, we go for the chocolate and we go for the ice cream, we go for all the comfort food and all these different things. And what is it we're doing? We're chasing a feeling. And yes, it's the chemical messengers that are going inside and being passed through, and the brain saying, well, hey, I feel this way, so I need these amounts of sugars, I need these chemicals in order for me to survive. Because it's that feeling that makes us feel good, makes us feel alive, that makes us forget what it is that's going on in our life. Because it's nice to temporarily forget about the pain, right? I mean, if you're one of those that are very emotionally sensitive, and maybe you've had a hard life, maybe things in life have just come after you, and life has just thrown 1-2 punches after you, and it would be nice to take a break, wouldn't it? I don't even in my life, I don't know how many times I've tapped out and I said, okay, guys, give me a break here. I know I'm supposed to be learning all these lessons, but it would be nice if you just give me a day where this doesn't have to happen. And even in my own life, and like I said, I'll get into that in a little bit, but I've chased those feelings. I didn't want to deal with certain things in my life, and and it was nice just to temporarily forget. Who wants to suffer throughout their whole life? And even in addictions, we're suffering. We disguise ourselves and we trick ourselves in our mind to saying, well, if I get this, it'll numb the pain. But at the same time, aren't these addictions creating all this chaos and pain and suffering anyways? And when you take a step back and you say, well, Miss Raina, addiction is very hard. Addiction type patterns are very hard to overcome. Absolutely. Anything that is conditioned to the mind is very hard to overcome, but it's not impossible. You are able to do it, and you are able to get through it. But if you're constantly focusing on things like who has wronged you, and how many things haven't gone your way, and how many goals have failed in your life, well, then this is the perception that I was talking about the self-belief. We have to start looking at our feelings, because that's what we do. Our feelings, we as humans are meant to feel. We are here to experience. We are here to love and share and hurt and cry and do all these different experiences. And when we shut that side down of us, we become dead to the world, and that's no way to live. And if any of you are sitting here listening to the show, and you have currently any form of addictive patterns or addiction problems, you really have to, I suggest getting help in some ways. And but start taking a look at your life, start taking a look at yourself, and figuring out what it is that's creating this chaos. And and it's not, it's okay to feel. Yes, true, it's normal that when we first start to feel, especially after being so shut off for a long time, all these feelings are going to come back, and sometimes they could be overwhelming. But it's human nature to feel, and we have to allow ourselves to free flow. We have to allow ourselves to breathe and take a step back and enjoy life, because life can become so chaotic. The problem is that, like I said, we're rejecting ourselves. We're rejecting those feelings. We're rejecting our life through the ideas of conditioning, and we think that we have to be tougher. I grew up in a city in Chicago where I had to be tough. It was a gangster town, and everyone has to be tough, and everyone has to be a certain way. There's no crying. You suck it up, and and men don't cry, and women are weak if they cry. And even in the city, it was like, women don't cry either. And it was just a chaotic time. And I looked at myself, because I was so sensitive, and I have no problem crying now. I have no problem showing my feelings. I have no problem expressing myself. Obviously, if you know me, I'm very expressive. I let everyone know how I feel. And if that makes them uncomfortable as far as their feelings, well, then that's okay for, but for me, I've learned through, my own denial, my own shutting myself down, my own rejection of my own feelings, that, that it's nonsense. I don't want to stop who I am because of an idea of what people think I should be or the way I should act, or maybe they don't understand who I am or the way I am, and we have, and that's the way life is. When you're too caught up in your own belief systems, this is the type of thing that's going to happen. And so the addiction of feeling good, can take you sometimes and move you on to someplace else. But what I would do is I would take a step back and I would say, okay, well, if I'm looking at belief systems and I really don't know, because hey, when I first got into this idea and I first got into these feelings and stuff, I really didn't know what I was looking at, what was actually creating my limitations, what was actually creating all these different things. But I had to say, if I know pain is causing my addiction through my personal experiences, then what is it that I can focus on? And yes, these are where, counselors come in and other people, psychiatrists or life coaches or whatever you feel comfortable again. And that, but where is it? And you have to learn to start believing in yourself and the idea that you can handle this, that you have to be able to look at yourself and say, you know what, regardless of anything going on, regardless of whatever's happening in my life, that I'm able to control this. I am able to beat this because, nothing is stronger than who you are. But you're not going to understand that until you start to take a step back from society, until you start to take a step back from your own worst enemy. How many of you guys are your own worst enemies? How many of you guys always have some judgment about whatever you do the moment it happens? And I've fallen trapped to that too. I was very judgmental of my own self, no matter what I do, and I've learned to channel that into constructive criticism when I'm doing things, so it helps me grow, but never to the point where it's beating me down. And a lot of times that's what we do. We're in our thoughts, because a lot of people who have addictions of any sort are very emotional. They think a lot, and they're caught up in their own beliefs. They're caught up in their own thoughts. They're caught up in their own judgments. And that's where the problem lies. So we have to learn to take a step back and say, I'm too busy, believing in what society tells me. I'm too busy and believing my own stuff, believing that I can't do this because I believe that, what someone told me, or maybe I thought that I wasn't good enough for something. And life can do that to you. Life can really make you feel, if you choose that, life can really make you feel like you're not good enough for anything. But the truth is you are, but you have to figure out what it is. You have to find your little niche in life, and you have to be able to do it. Every single one of us has gifts. And, I don't care who you are. And, I was talking to my protege the other day, and I said, it's not a competition between people. It's not, it doesn't matter whether you're a spiritual healer, or you flip burgers at McDonald's, or you cut grass, or you're a teacher someplace. It's not, life is not about being better. There's no competition. There's no value greater than the other. Everyone has their part in life. Everyone has to be able to do something in order for the world to go round. And he looked at me and he was like, well, yeah, I get that. And then the immediate comment was right again to be, I can't wait to do this because it's going to make me better. And again, we go back to my no words. Well, you're putting yourself in judgment. You're creating from your personal pain, you're creating more pain. You're creating that disbelief in yourself because you're caught up in those beliefs. And that's one of the reasons why when I first, came here to W4CY, I wanted to, I started with certain things. I started with foundations, and next week we're going to talk all about the ego, and we're going to talk in depth about the ego because it is so important that you understand these things. And when we understand why it is the things that are happening in our lives, we can learn to work on them. And I hate the word fix, and so many people will say, well, I need to be fixed, or what will fix me, Miss Raina? And I dislike that word so much because there's nothing to be fixed. The only thing that you need to understand is to change our view of everything. We'll be right back after these messages from the life of Raina.
A message from the life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina 561-846-2190 and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
Okay, we are back. If you'd like to give us a call, you can call us at 561-623-9429. Again, you're here with Transcendental Transformation, and my name is Miss Raina, and we are talking about addictions. We are talking about the emotional side of addictions, and whatever it is, it could be it could be drugs, it could be food, it could be all these different things. And before we went to break, we were talking about how our belief systems and our disbelief in ourselves create a world of chaos that cause us to go to these addictions. But I've said this before on the show, what if everything that we believed, or mostly everything that we believed, wasn't true? And what if the ideas that we thought we held on to, that were supposed to give us stability, actually in turn created this chaos and actually pushed us into these type of ideas? We believe what we're taught because we don't know any better, because we've heard it so many times, and we just accept something for what it is because the rest of the world says it. But again, how many times throughout history have we heard, oh, well, the world used to believe this, but then we figured out it wasn't like this. So even though we're in an age of information, and we're getting to a point where resources are on every computer and every phone and everything, could it be possible that we're still falling into the same trap, no matter what generation we are, of ideas that we really don't know? Because again, we're guessing. We're looking at these ideas and we're saying, well, okay, well, these things and these belief systems will set us up a lot of times for disappointment. Sometimes they'll give us a false sense of pride or happiness or whatever. But a lot of times, if you ever have an idea where someone says something and you have a pushback, and I know I sound like a broken record, but if you ever have a pushback on something because someone said something that you don't agree with, then that shows my point. Because whenever we have a pushback, that shows that limitation, that shows these type of things. And a lot of times, those are the very things. So when you get hurt, or when an idea hurts you and stuff, then, it becomes uncertain, because, that's what ends up happening. I mean, the two biggest things that we fight over are religion and politics all the time. And a lot of times we sit there and we'll go back and forth. And I've seen friends break up. I've seen people, like you until you find out that they don't believe in this spiritual thing, or they don't believe in this type of God, or this or that, and all these different things. And everything is supposed to be a certain way, right? I mean, even take your family, or take your family situation. Mom is supposed to be a certain way. She's supposed to act this way. She's supposed to do this. She's supposed to give us unconditional love. Dad's supposed to do this. He's supposed to do this. And our relationships are supposed to be this certain way. Our life is supposed to be a certain way. Life is supposed to be happy and joyful, and we're supposed to get married, and we're supposed to do all these different things, and my friendships are supposed to be true and honest, and etc., etc. And that isn't true, is it? That isn't true. Life is full of surprises. Life is full of challenges. Life is full of all these ideas. And this is why I'm reiterating about belief systems through an addiction program, because these are the type of ideas that create the mental chaos, that create the emotional upset that you want to numb. You want to numb these because of these ideas of what you thought were supposed to be and what you thought, or what actually is. When you're young, your eyes are bright-eyed, you're bushy-tailed, you're ready to go out and take the world, and everyone asks you, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And you always have these answers, whether it's an athlete or a fireman or a doctor or whatever it is, a dancer, whatever it is. And you have these ideas of life, and everyone tells you, oh yes, go to school, do this, go to school, do this. Once you get this, you'll meet a nice girl or you meet a nice man, and this and this and this. And those very conditionings teach you, because and even if you're how about the ones that are that don't do so well in school? I even was one of them, and so many times I would get not so perfect grades. I'll be gentle with myself, but there'll be, and I constantly heard, well, if you don't get good grades, you're not going to get a job and you won't do anything in life. And I mean, that puts more stress on you, those type of ideas, and people think that they're helping you. But what they're really doing is creating this type of idea, this atmosphere to create these personal experiences so that disbelief happens. And are you guys understanding where I'm going with this? And so, so if you're sitting there and say, well, how many times do I sit there and go with how life was supposed to do? How many times does my mind say, well, yes, life was supposed to be this way? Or or you're angry at an ex because, say like you just broke up with someone and, oh, I'm so angry because I trusted him or I trusted her or whatever. And, they fooled me, they lied to me, they cheated on me, they did whatever, etc. That's not how life was supposed to be. That's not how that relationship was supposed to be. I should have known better. I should have seen the signs. I should have done all these things. And as I said, these type of emotions, these type of thought patterns are also addictive patterns, because it sets you up for chaos each and every time. This is why I always tell you about my 5 no-nos all the time. And I'll go over them one more time. No good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative, backwards, forwards, better, worse. If you can start to learn to separate your life and your vocabulary and your way of thinking from these ideas, you will find that so much pain, so much lack of love, so much hang-ups, so many disbeliefs will just fall to the wayside, because you're not holding these judgments of how something's supposed to be. I take my mom for who she is. I take my dad for who he was. I take everybody, my friends, for who they are. I see them for what they are, not for what I want them to be. And you know what I mean? My mom and my sister, I know they love each other, but they've had a little bit of rocky relationship for a little while. And sometimes, they go back and forth on these ideas, and especially on my sister's side. So she always has this idea of how things are supposed to be and how people are supposed to act. And because she would do this, and it would do this, and these type of patterns, and I know many of us who have addictions to things, I hear this from people that have walked in my door that have said, well, Miss Raina, one of the things I struggle with is, is addiction, whether it be drugs or whatever. And well, why? As well, because everyone wrongs me. Everyone's supposed to, you're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to act this way, and you're supposed to be truthful and honest and all that stuff. Well, yes, I agree with you. Yes, it would be nice if everybody was honest. It would be nice if all these things. But when we're looking at these type of addictive patterns, that in itself of constantly focusing on something is an addictive pattern as well, because it's an addiction to get a chemical reaction to make you feel chaos, to make you feel pain. And that's why you reject your feelings. That's why you reject the idea of trying to connect with yourself, and you drown it out with food, or you drown it out with shopping, or you drown it out with drugs, or whatever it is. You drown out these ideas because of the rejection of the ideas that you're supposed to get. Life is supposed to be about learning. It's supposed to be about growing and experience. And if you're numbing yourself, if you're stopping yourself from experiencing, there's people that are even the loners, and I always say there's the loners, and then there's the loners for the reasons of pain. And the difference between the two is I enjoy being a loner. I enjoy that type of thing. At one time I did. I hated to be by myself. When I was going through this period where I thought that, I was rejecting everything, and I just couldn't stand it. But after I came into myself and everything, it turned around. And there's many people that say, oh, I don't like the world. The world's too painful. Everyone hurts me. Everyone does all these things. But then again, it's teaching you. And if you're looking at something in judgment and you're not learning for what the lesson really is, then you will constantly have that chaos. You will constantly be addicted. When people ask me, they say, well, Miss Raina, you used to do drugs. You used to have addictive patterns. You're OCD, you have anxiety and dyslexia and all these things. How do you get through daily life? How do you go out and do the things you do? And I say, well, because I believe in myself. I don't judge things. When something happens to me, I don't take it personally. I don't sit there and say, oh man, see, here it goes again. Miss Raina, you're not worth it. You're not this. And then let's run to go numb myself so that, and I used to do that. But when I found that, that wasn't doing anything, because my problems are still there. You can numb yourself. You can go on a binge of some sort, for a whole week or a whole month. And when you get out of it, guess what? Life and your problems are still there. You can move. I know people that in one of their addictive patterns is to move or to leave every single time the going gets tough or whenever any type of thing happens. And they always think that they're going to be happier someplace else. And one of their addictions is to run. One of their addictive patterns is to run every single time. Well, guess what? They're happy for 5-6 months. They're loving their new land. They're loving all the people until life catches up to them, because the unresolved energies come back. Those type of situations, they purposely seek out those type of people again. Those situations happen and they go bouncing from time to time to time, from place to place. And these are the things that happen. You cannot change the past, and you must realize that. And why would you want to? As I said, when I was a child, life was tough for me. My family didn't really discuss, when I would see people that weren't living, and I would have all these feelings and these psychic impressions and all these things, and I really didn't have anybody to talk to. My family really wasn't open about that stuff. My mom was very gifted, but she was very quiet about that stuff. And often when I said, Mom, there's a man standing right there, or this guy came up to me, and that she'd be like, they would just blow it off as it was my imagination, or she'd just say, oh, see, someone's watching you, you better behave. But but having these psychic intuitions, and then at the time being bisexual and not knowing why I like girls just as much as I like guys and everything, and then having spirit guides as Lori and Makrana and all these things, and being told, well, when you get older, you're going to teach people, you're going to teach them how to take care of themselves, and people will come to you for advice and life skills. And, but at the same time, people will shun you. People will disregard what you say and not like you for who you are and not understand you. And I'm thinking, wow, all this at such a young age, it's a lot to handle. And so when I got older, especially with the family business, I was supposed to take over the family business. And, my dad put a lot of pressure on me all the time. It was constantly, my daughter's going to take over the family business. She's going to do this. She's going to do this. She's going to build it even up more past that. It's pressure. And so by the time I was in high school, it was just so overwhelming. I just didn't even want it anymore. I mean, I was good at sports. I was good at swimming and softball, but I just didn't want it anymore. I just got tired of having so much pressure on me. And for some of you, you may feel like that. You may feel like life is coming at you and dumping on you and trying to put you into some type of role every single time. And so I succumbed to addiction. I said, I remember the very first day, one of my friends came to me and said, hey, here, you want this? And I looked at it and I said, what's it do? And they said, oh, it's going to make you happy. I was sold. I was just like, yep, let's do it. And ever since then, and I took off with it. Yes, I was, with my biological mom, I was a drug baby, but so it was easy for my body to, as soon as I tasted one of anything, it was like, oh yeah, I remember this. And my body just instantly craved it. And I found myself, well, I can shut myself down psychically. I can be normal. I can stand around somebody without feeling all their emotions. I can do all these things, and I can, my depression stopped, my fear stopped, my emotions stopped, and I could just live life And then all of a sudden, everything started to suffer, right? My grades started to suffer even more. Your life may suffer, your jobs, your relationships, all these things did. And so these type of ideas will happen. I didn't have many friends, and I guarantee you're cutting off your friends if you have some of these addiction problems, or patterns, I should say. And I did the same thing. I cut people away because it just seemed like people hurt you. Right? People hurt me, people hurt you. And so I cut people away, and I sabotaged the relationships, and I made sure that, they weren't going to go out there and do that. That my emotions, my fear, my depressions were going to be able to be passed out like that. So the more I rejected people, the more people rejected me. And anyone that is dealing with this type of idea or this type of patterns will have that. It's a common give and take of rejection. Your rejection over life, your rejection over people, how people see you, people write you off all the time. And I know, when I was in my phase of partying and everything like that, and I just didn't care about a lot of things, I was written off many times too. People judged me for what I did and the things I was doing. And right away they said, oh, well, she's on drugs. She's not going to do anything with her life. Oh, just who cares? And that was the type of attitude. And so how could I build self-confidence? How can anyone build self-confidence when the world just writes you off and judges you? And this is why I tell you so much that you have to learn to find yourself, that you have to be the one to learn to overcome these ideas and to find your happiness, to build your self-belief, and to build this idea, to resolve your pain. Because people, I'm going to be honest with you, the world is not going to do it for you. Nobody's going to do it for you. I did it for me. I didn't do it for anybody else. I made, and nobody really helped me. I had to make sure when I made that decision, okay, well, these are the things that's going to happen. These are the ideas that happen in my life. And, yes, they are uncomfortable, but I wanted to feel happy. Or this idea of happy. I always, when I was younger, we hear about this word balance, and I have a different opinion of the balance now. But at the time I thought, wow, that would be great to wake up every single day and just love life and to have friends and to have a relationship and to do all these different things and to feel loved, to feel wanted, not just by people, but by myself. Because who wants to wake up every day and reject themselves and not like who they are? And that's why it was so easy for me, as I'm sure some of you, to turn over to some of these things. Is because why? If we don't like ourselves, if we feel miserable every single day, well, it's easy to do that. It's easy to numb ourselves. Hey, I wouldn't want to do that either. But, as I was saying earlier, with being alone, I spent a lot of time being alone because of that idea. And it was pure punishment. You have to look at yourself, and that's why I say people who love themselves love to be alone. And not out of rejection. It's not because, oh, the world sucks, everyone's mean, da-da-da-da-da. It's because, you have found peace within yourself. You enjoy your own company. You can love who you are. And no matter if you're just sitting out on the porch, just watching the birds fly by or watching the sunset or whatever it is, listening to some music and having some tea or coffee or whatever it is, you can love solitude. And I don't mean just 5 minutes here and then you got to run off to your friends and stuff, but can you sit there for days, even weeks and stuff, and not really pick up the phone, not go on social media, not, have to go out, go to the bars or whatever, or go, to meet people? Can you learn to love yourself if in solitude? If you look at alone time as torture, or if you're alone, you have to go, the only time you can be alone is when you're partying or when you're doing certain things, well, then this is the type of idea that we have to move at. But if you are the same as me, then this is where we have to change. So why, pain has to be resolved. And that's one of the number one culprits, is always pain. We are an emotional thing. We are emotional beings. We will always falter under pain. And when pain becomes too much, we have a safety switch. We have a default switch. But, I always talk about truth. And a lot of times, we look at truth and we say, well, what is truth? Because yes, a lot of times we don't like to hear the truth. Someone who's very blunt, if I always say, be honest with people, just don't be so blunt where you're being, rude or hurtful to somebody. But you should always be truthful. And, but a lot of times we've become a society of, we don't want to hear the truth, or we can't say this, or we can't say that. We can't use certain references because this might offend someone. Or, even in the LGBT community, I have many friends, and it's amazing how you can't say certain words, or otherwise someone gets offended if you say this or that. And I'm just like, well, we didn't say anything, that was bad for them or anything like that. But people have just become too sensitive to the truth. And so, yes, the truth may hurt a little bit. It may even be scary. It may, realizing certain things about you, realizing that, it must be you that takes responsibility for your life. And, that's scary. How many times, do we pass things off and we blame ideas on or situations on other. Oh, this person did. How many times do we bounce? How many of you guys bounce from job to job and you're always blaming it on someone else? Oh, the owner was acting this way, or the manager did this, or the workers did this, or they didn't do this, and it's always somebody else. Well, the truth is we have to take responsibility for that. Maybe it's us. I guarantee it's us. Maybe it's something that we have to change. Maybe that's part of our addiction pattern. Maybe that we find reasons to give up on ourselves because, again, there's many types of addictions. But truth, yes, will hurt at first, but also truth is our biggest strength because truth allows us to grow. If we spend all of our time running from our feelings, and we spend all of our time running from truth, and we actually just turn to our belief systems, well then we need to change our perspective. Truth, like I said, is going to be tough at first. It's going to be hard. It may be scary, but you will learn to accept truth as something that gives you power, something that resolves ideas. Because when you look and say, okay, well, the moment I realize the truth about a situation is the moment I can make a choice what I want to do with it. And how empowering is that? How many of you feel helpless about situations? And you always think, like I said, that it's somebody else's fault, or the universe, or the world, or God, or goddess, or whatever is dumping on you. Well, if we empower truth and we say, okay, well, the truth is I'm responsible for this, and the truth is I overreact to these situations, or I can take control, and I say, oh, wow, this is really the way it needs to be. Well, then now all of a sudden, I can handle it. I can change. I can make the changes I need to, and I'm empowered. And then all of a sudden, I realize I believe in myself. My students ask me that. People ask me that all the time. They're like, Miss Raina, how do you learn to believe in yourself? Because I've tried techniques and everything like that. I said, start admitting the truth to yourself. Start talking to yourself and saying, yes, one of the big fours I always talk about is responsibility. Responsibility is key, because a lot of times in addictive patterns, a lot of times in the things that we do, even in, like I talked about shopping a little bit, women, when we're upset, what do we like to do? We like to run out and buy something to make us feel good, right? But the truth is if we don't have the money and you're doing it anyways, guess what we just did? We put ourselves in a pickle, and now we're stressed out because this situation happened and we still haven't resolved it, and now we're short on money because we overspend here, and now we got two situations. And so do you see how it multiplies? And I know men sometimes go a little destructive in their own ways, but the truth is, if we say, well, yes, I'm upset about this and I need to deal with this and I need to sit the situation, you can stop the pattern of running out to do something. You don't have to go out every time you feel upset and have to go get comfort food. You choose to do that and not taking responsibility. And yes, I get that. I know a lot of you are saying, well, Miss Raina, it's a chemical dependency. Yes and no. It is also a choice, and it also is a chemical dependency because you have converted the body into conditioning to that. Every time this happens, boom, I need this chemical to respond to this, and boom, I need this reaction. And it's a cycle each and every time. So I want you guys to understand that yes, it is a choice. And in order for you to break a pattern, you must have to take responsibility and choose it. And then, yes, that's the struggle of it, is the brain wanting, the body wanting that chemical response. Temporary moments of happiness, are temporary moments of feeling happy, can be possible. A lot of times we look at things and we say, oh, life is all supposed to be happy. Everything in life is supposed to be happy. These ideas and anytime life throws us a little curveball, all of a sudden, oh, there it goes again. And I know many people. I had a friend that I was talking to and this person was like, oh man, every single day something happens to me. Well, yeah, you say that constantly, you make sure and then the moment you get something happy, or in your mind something happy, it's going to create that, and boom, the addiction is born. So your idea of addiction is, boom, every time I get a little bit of happiness, something in life is going to change it. We rely too much on the external world. We rely way too much. And, we rely too much on the external powers, whether we believe in an all-powerful universe, whether we believe in a god or goddess or karma or whatever it is, that's given us this power. We rely too much on the external world to give us personal satisfaction. And that's the hang-up. We rely too much on other people to do things for us. And if there's one thing you're going to learn in this show is I'm going to tell you constantly to do things for yourself. I'm going to constantly tell you to take responsibility. And those that don't want to take responsibility may not like the show, and that's okay. But those that learn to take responsibility, your life will change. And I guarantee it, because I'm living proof of it. Anytime I've not taken responsibility for my life, anytime I've relied on something else or an idea or something like that, I found it not so fulfilling. I found that life has kept those similar patterns because I give over my power. The people will tell you, even in AA things, I have a problem with a lot of these. And if you've talked to me, I have a lot of problems with them, because they tell you, oh, turn all your power over to this God or this idea or this, or you have to be able to do this, and they put all this added stress on. And I know where they're trying to come from. But when you create this idea that something else is going to save you, and you have to walk this very fine line, otherwise you're going to fall, and you're doing good as long as you earn this, and you're doing this, and you have to totally rely on this program. they're instilling fear in you. Anytime someone needs to instill fear in you to make you succeed, you're going to fail. If you're going to falter, you're going to fall back. Is because why? Because the fear only creates more fear. If someone tells you can't live without this program, or you have to rely on this idea or this type of power or this or that, well, then guess who's never going to have power? Guess who's never going to learn to believe in themselves? Guess who's never going to take responsibility for their life? That's you. Because you're spending too much time putting your hands in these ideas, and whether you think that they're true or they're not true or anything like that, it's not going to be. Fear will always create the uncertainty in life. And I'm not trying to step on anyone's belief here. If you want to believe in a God, if you want to believe in a universe, if you want to believe in the law of karma, you're going to believe whatever you believe, regardless of what I say. But I'm not speaking to you as Miss Raina right now. I'm speaking to you as an actual guide, and one that's in line with, that's on their last life. And I'm telling you, when you rely on an external force, you give over your self-power. You give over yourself. You give a piece of your soul that has that strength. And so when you give up on yourself and you just say, oh, well, here you go, do it for me. It'd be like school. How many times do I say, well, if we sit there and have, and we're in school and we say, oh, Mom, Dad, can you do my homework for me every single day? Are you going to learn anything? When you graduate, are you actually going to know the material? No, your parents will know. And that's the same concept. Your challenges, your addictions, your ideas of these things are here to challenge you, to prove to yourself that you have the strength, that you have the willpower, that you can overcome anything if you just learn to take responsibility and start shifting your awareness to self-belief. If you start learning to say, making choices for yourself. And you know what? You're going to falter sometimes. There's going to be times where you're going really well at something, and all of a sudden, boom, you hit a bump. And that's part of life. But you can't give up on yourself. You can't, life is not going to change if you give up on yourself. You know, it doesn't matter, like I said, what you believe in. Just believe in yourself. And that's the only thing that I care about. I could care less whatever you believe in, as long as you believe in yourself, as long as you trust yourself, as long as you love yourself, and as long as you take action and control of your life. Everybody is here for the same purpose, is to experience and to learn. So this is our playground. This is our battleground. You know, people talk of this idea of hell. Well, if you want to say hell is a place of punishment and torture, well, then I guess welcome to hell. But you can live. Life doesn't have to be that. It depends on your perception of it. Life can be grand and wonderful. Yes, it's going to have that bumps and curveballs. Like I said, no life is immune to pain. No life is immune to lessons. No life is there. But if you believe in yourself, you trust yourself, and you take responsibility, you're going to find that these addictions will fall away. All right, everybody, that is tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we'll be coming live from Chicago, but if you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation Radio Show. Follow us on our website at soulandspiritguide.com. Email us at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com, and visit the W4CY website and download the W4CY radio app. Always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you and have a wonderful night.